Hi there, in this video I'm going to talk you through some terms that we often hear within dating and relationships that are completely misconstrued in modern culture. It's really important that you understand these terms in more detail because actually the misunderstanding around them causes a lot of friction within relationships and in dating, particularly when they're misused and weaponized against someone who isn't really displaying that type of behavior. If you really engage in this video and understand these terms and these concepts better, it will allow you to have more healthy and productive conversations with your partner or the person that you're dating. I'm going to go through 8 terms in this video. For each one, I'm going to give you the pop psychology version and the actual what this really is version. Number 1, love bombing versus genuine enthusiasm. Now, the pop psychology around this is that any over-the-top attention, anything that feels like something you wouldn't do, is automatically bad, toxic, or a problem. What love bombing actually is a controlling mechanism, and you can easily test whether this is the case by setting boundaries early on if you feel like the pace is going too quickly. If you say, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this level of affection or these big plans so early, a true narcissist or a controller will not respond well to that. Someone who's genuinely interested will likely say, oh, I'm really sorry, I just really like you. Now, the distinction tip here is it's all about intention and consistency. The thing about love bombing is it ramps up really quickly and then it dissipates just as fast. Genuine affection should grow. It should never feel like it's about to be the rug that's pulled from underneath your feet. Number 2, attachment style versus just behavior. The pop psychology version of this is, oh, he's so avoidant, or he's so codependent, or some other term that they've read in an article or heard in a TikTok, and then they apply to a particular type of behavior in a way that they, probably not a psychologist, understand it. The actual meaning of attachment theory goes back to early caregiving and childhood and is a genuine branch of psychology that takes time and careful consideration to understand. So using these terms, particularly when it's, say, between friends trying to discuss a potential relationship or a partner, can often be very unhelpful. And here's an important distinction as well. Even if you're right and that person is an avoidant person, that's just who they are and why they are that way, but it doesn't mean that that is inappropriate. You can't use these terms in a way to mean that behavior is inappropriate, full stop. It might be that you don't like it and you can't deal with it, but that's something you can either work through individually, you can work out together, or it might just be a reason that you aren't well suited to each other. Number 3, boundaries versus control. Now, in other videos that I've done, I talked about how important boundaries are, but things like this, my boundary is that it's not okay that you go out on your own or that you talk to other girls. That's not a boundary, that's control. A boundary is self-directed, so a boundary comes from something about you and what you need. It's not about what that other person does. Now, I can't go into the full detail of that, but a good example of that is if I feel unsafe, then I'll leave that situation. If I need to talk, I need it to be like this, not you can't do this. So remember that boundaries are self-directed, they're not about the other person. Number 4, a narcissist versus someone who's just being selfish and mean. Now, the very common use of this is anyone that's ever upset you or behaved in a way that felt like they were prioritizing their own actions or that they ghosted you or that they, treated you with complete disregard is therefore a narcissist. Narcissistic personality disorder is a clinical condition. It has particular definitions and particular parameters for which that person needs to satisfy to actually be a narcissist. It's not just someone being selfish, mean in that moment, or generally as a pattern of behavior. I can't go into the full detail of what NPD actually is, but there's a whole lot of other stuff in there around lack of empathy and accountability, but it's not just in micro moments. These are the types of things that happen in relationships and dating, and you can work those out through good communication in almost all cases. Number 5, gaslighting versus just disagreement. Now, a very common use of this is like, oh, he said I was overreacting, what a gaslighter. Or if you disagree on the recollection of an event, that needn't necessarily be gaslighting. The actual term of gaslighting is a deliberate attempt to make you misremember something over the course of a period of time, to destabilize you and to make you feel less secure in having conversations with that person and to disagree with them. It's not just having different opinions about what happened. One-off disagreements are almost never gaslighting, at least not intentionally. And even if someone does once off say something that didn't necessarily happen, gaslighting is usually more deliberate and more prolonged than that. Think about repeated invalidation to destabilize your emotions. That is gaslighting. Number 6, trauma bonding versus trauma sharing. Now, sometimes you'll see this when people overshare, and I'm an oversharer myself, and you talk about things you've been through, and it's like, oh my God, we've both been through this, we're trauma bonding. Unfortunately, trauma bonding is the idea that you are together because of this thing that you went through, and this can often lead to abusive and toxic relationships. Trauma sharing, on the other hand, is where you can share your trauma in a safe space and it not become the defining feature of why you are connected, whether that be as a friend or in a relationship. Trauma bonding actually can be the cause and definition of an abusive and a toxic relationship. It creates this reward and abuse cycle that people stay in and get stuck in. Mutual vulnerability and having safe conversations about things that you've been through in a non-judgmental way where it doesn't define the reason why you're friends or in a relationship with that person, well, that can be really healthy. That's what I've been through in peer support. And that's kind of what happens in therapy. Usually it's just one way. Number 7, triggered versus annoyed. Now, this is super common. We've all used triggered in lots of different ways. It's become a meme online. And triggered doesn't mean just that something has ticked you off. Oh, I've read the news today, I'm triggered by it. No, a trigger isn't just some sort of like feeling. It's an intense emotional reaction to something that's caused by a trauma or a memory in your life or something, a pattern of behavior that you're not able to just move on from in the same way that you can move on from being annoyed about someone cutting you up on the motorway. That's not the same thing. Number 8, intrusive thoughts versus random ideas. People start to use the term intrusive thoughts to mean, oh, I just had this crazy thought about buying this polka dot dress or dyeing my hair green or, getting these crazy trainers. And the fact is we've just sort of diminished what this term actually means. Actual intrusive thoughts are usually really distressing. They're involuntary and they are directly linked to, in a lot of cases, mental health conditions such as OCD, anxiety, or PTSD. If you feel like you could say that thing that you think is intrusive out loud immediately or post it online or make a TikTok about it, then it's probably not an intrusive thought. There you go. That's my 8 terms that I think are misused within pop psychology and social media today. And I understand that these are not the literal definitions in a lot of cases that you see in a psychology textbook, but I do think that some of the distinctions that are made here will really help you to have better conversations with partners and people that you're dating and friends and family. So next time that you're using words like gaslighting or narcissist or triggered, please stop and reflect as to whether you're using the appropriate terms, because using these terms in a way that diminishes what they're actually about actually stops us from having productive conversations. But if you do disagree with anything that's said, that's okay. You can drop me a comment. You can let me know. I completely understand. I'm not a professional. These are just things that I've learned through my own study and my own experience with therapy and peer support and having general conversations about these terms. For today, thanks for being a cutie and being here with us on The Right Angle. I'll see you next time.